Kumlen and a black Gemara. Today's daf is daf Nun Hey Amid Aleph up to the Mishnah. And the Hashgacha Pratis that we're now in the 3 weeks, and we learn all about the story of Churban Samikdash and everything else starting today. So the Gemara says, Mishnah says, talking about different tikkun oilams that we did, so we're going to throw in over here another halacha, which is sort of a takana. And while we're doing that, Rabbi Yechon related a number of things that he saw that happened in his lifetime. So we'll include all those as well. So we're up to the Mishnah, Nun Hey Amid Aleph, 4 lines on top of the page. Hey, Rabbi Yechon Rabbi Yechon gave the following edison. He gave, I guess, testimonies about the following matters. Number one, Allah Chareshes, on a girl who is deaf and dumb, which has the same din like a minor, but Shehesiya Avia. The father married her off, which means that she's married mehatayra. Because the father has the right to marry off his daughter. And nevertheless, she yaitze beget. She can receive her get. Why? Because when it comes to a get, we learned more a few days ago, we don't need her consent. So therefore, our husband can divorce her. Number one. Number two. Al-Ktana Bas Yisrael, a young girl, a Bas Yisrael. She married a Kohen, but not through her father. She was an orphan. So her mother or her siblings married her off, which means she's only married midrabanan. Nevertheless, she's permitted to eat truma. She can eat truma derabanan. Since she's married midrabanan, it's truma derabanan. And if because the Chachamim don't have the right to overturn, to the dinim of the Torah. The Torah says that if you're not married, you're not married. How can she's only married to Rabbanan, so therefore she's can only eat truma, which is the Rabbanan. And the question that everybody asks is all the Rishonim, why can't you be talking about truma deraisa? Remember, it's only a kid, and because it's only a kid that her father married, that we're talking about Ketana, and a Ketana oichel nevelis is no big deal. So then, why can't you eat truma deraisa? So one of the answers is, it sounds from the Mishnah here that you can even give her, even though we say a ketana or a cotton, your business doesn't have to stop them from doing an avera, but you're not allowed to encourage them or help them and giving them the truma. Something you can even give them the truma. So it must be talking about truma derabanan. Okay, says it further. Case number 3. Oh, sorry, before that fact. And if she died, by Yosh, she's only married to Rabbanan, the husband Yashta. Number 3. Let's say if somebody stole a beam, he already placed it inside his house. So if you're going to say the only way you can do tshuva is by returning the beam, he'll never do tshuva or dismantle the whole house. So that in that case we say all you have to do is pay back the money. So in order to encourage people to do tshuva, otherwise I'll never do tshuva.
Interesting. In Bava where it deals with the Takonos Morish, you wouldn't think that it's first brought here in Gittin, where
true.
For all places, you wouldn't look for it in Gittin.
You're right. Your hands are right. And the fourth case is another din that we learn about in 7th page in Bava Kama, Al Chatas Agzula. If somebody stole an animal, and there was only, we'll see the Gemara Machlekes, exactly what we're talking about. But let's say if you hold that Yush alone is not kind. That Yehush, if somebody abandons hope, in order for it to transfer the shus it has to be Yehush and Shinur Shus. That means the Ganef itself is not koine, but if somebody buys it from the Ganef and it was already after Yehush, it was Yehush and Shinur Shus. Is al chatas hagzula, a stolen animal. They weren't aware of it. In other words, it's like a shagig. And a person went and bought this animal and brought it as a carbon, it will be a valid carbon. And you don't have to bring another carbon. Why? They tikkun hamizbeach, because we want to fix up the mizbeach, as we'll see in the Gemara what exactly that means. Says the Gemara, first of all, Amar Rabbi says from the edus, from the sequence of the edus, and how we change this. He starts with talking about a chareshes, and then he jumps to a ktana. Why didn't he continue talking about a chareshes and say the same thing? That they can eat truma. They're also only married to the Rabbanan. You could continue even if you're married to a kohen, you can eat truma. Why? To jump to a ketana. So it says here that what happens is Amala Agent said to Agent, Ru'u get we said here, we're saying over here is that you can give her a divorce even though she cannot consent, because it doesn't matter. It's unilateral decision by the husband and he doesn't need her consent. So if somebody says to his wife, He says to two Eidim, look at the get that I'm about to give her. Then he tells her, turns around to his wife and says, here, take this contract loan. So she has no idea it's a get. Because you don't have to have a right to give. So you don't need her consent. She's divorced. We don't need her consent. We know that. What's the chiddush? Nein, Mao, I would have thought, even the Amma after he spoke to the aide, he returned to her and he labeled this a contract, a loan contract. Maybe Betuli Butler, maybe this is another way, a subtle way of saying I'm canceling the get. Kamashla, no, he's not canceling the get at all, but it's just what? Imisa the Butler, the aide. If he really wanted to cancel the get, he would turn back to the Eidim and tell them, forget the get that I just spoke to you about. He said, why do you come out? He said, why do you talk about contract loan? He's embarrassed to tell her that he just gave her a divorce. Therefore, he said what he said. He was able to walk out of the room and not see her reaction. Then the next case is Tana Bashis What happens? Let's say we're talking about chareshes. So the next case could have been about chareshes, that the brothers or the mother married her off. Instead, we jump to an ordinary tana. Vilu chareshes, it's clear chareshes in that case would not be eating. If the mother married off a chareshes, the yisayma, since she's only married her rabbanon, a chareshes is different. We're more worried, and she cannot eat. She would not be able to eat truma, and why not? My time, but why not? Zeta, we are worried. Shema yaichel. Because she's married with the Rabbanon, so why is she any worse than a Ketana? Let her eat truma with the Rabbanon. Because we're worried that what happened. We are worried that a kohen chedesh will marry a chedeshes and give it to eat truma. No, but if an ordinary person married a chedeshes, of course he'll be careful to give her only truma d'rabbanan. But that people don't understand the difference. Now, what happened? Usually, who's going to marry a chedeshes? Usually, a chedesh will marry a chedeshes, and a chedesh who marry chedeshes is only married midrabbanan. And we're worried that a chedesh who married chedeshes will give her to eat truma d'oraisa. Doesn't understand the difference, and he'll give him to eat because he can eat truma d'oraisa. He's a kohen, and he will give her to eat truma d'oraisa. A pikayach won't do that. But if you allow a pikeh, then a chedesh will also be able to eat and feed her, and then he might give her the wrong to her. Says the Gemara, the leichel, and what's wrong if she eats? The chayda cotton leichel. Let's say the chayda gave her to eat from the raisa. It's a cotton leichel. It's still a cotton leichel available. What's the big deal? And there's one opinion that says you don't even have to stop her, even from the raisa. We are worried that if a chedesh will feed a chedeshes, the next step is a chedesh will marry an ordinary woman, and she definitely is also to eat truma d'oraisa, and he'll give her truma d'oraisa. So what's the big deal? He'll give her only truma d'rabbanan. We are worried that because he is a chedesh, he's not so careful. And he might give her to eat truma d'oraisa. Okay, she stole a beam built in a bit. Shammai says, you have to destroy the entire house and move the beam. He doesn't give way. You want to do truma, you do the right thing. Return it to the owner. No, all he has to pay money because in order to encourage people to do truma. The Achrein talk about that the Rif quotes Beis Shammai's opinion as well as Beis Hillel. Now, usually Beis Rif is only out there to tell you halachas, especially Beis Shammai. Why does the Rif quote Beis Shammai? So they want to learn from here halacha. Now, Beis Shammai uses the expression mikakeya kolabay, completely kolabita kola, destroy the entire house. So they want to learn from here. When does Beis Hillel say that you don't return the beam, you only pay money if it's a question of destroying the entire house? But if it's just to take a little bit of an effort to remove it, but it's not that difficult. Exactly, so on top, and you can get to it, and whatever it is, then even basically you might get to this morish and bring it back to the owner. It's only when it's a question of destroying the house. Even though we learned about it in Sukkah as well, but it goes late to make the same takana that pay the money, and there's not such a big tircha. Anyway. There are two ways of understanding the Mishnah. There's generally a big machlekes. We'll have Rabbah and so on in Pei Meruba. If Yeush alone is koina or not, if the owner abandoned hope of ever recovering it is the guy of koina or is not koina. That's one argument. Then we say, but even if you have Yeush, if there's something else coupled to it. For example, Yeyosh and Shini and Shini, and there's a Shini, or Yeyosh, a small Shini, or Shini HaChayzer, or Yeyosh and Shini Hashem, the name has changed, or Yeyosh and Shini Rishus. And there's a machlekes if it matters whether the Shini Rishus takes place after the Yeyosh or even before. In other words, the Ganav stole it, and then he sells it to a Lekech. By the Lekech, he had Yeyosh first, and then Shini Rishus. What about if the Ganav sold it before there was Yeyosh? But then there was Yeyosh. So now sitting in the Lekech's property, there was a Shini Rishus followed by Yeyosh. So what's the logic of Shini Rishus? Is it something to do, is there some kind of a Shini in the item itself? Or is it the word that behetera asal liyada? You might want to say that the difference is by if whether it be isura asal liyada or behetera. What Shini Rishus does is it removes the isura. That's when the Lekech got it. It was already a Yeyosh, so it didn't come to his hand the isa. If that's the word, or the word is the Shini Rishus itself, it sort of makes us a bit of a change in the item. And the question is whether the Ganef himself has any kinyanim in it. For example, if the Ganef gives it to a woman, the famous if the Ganef was Yehush and gives it to a woman as Kedushin, right? If the Ganef himself wasn't kinder, and he gave nothing to the woman, even though the woman received something, but he didn't give it to her. Or do we say the Ganef already also has some kinyanim in it, and the Shinish completes it, and therefore he did give her something, and they are Mekudesh. So it's a chayshon go to town with all that. So there's a third way of learning. Isn't
there an element also of shliach? I mean, why should this guy's like, why should we allow?
No, he's still chayiv money to the owners. That's exactly. This kid is when he walks away scot free. Here he still has to pay and take carefully. But so there's a third way of learning. That is, Yehush is kind of on its own. Yehush kind of on its own, but when it comes to a carbon, it says in the pasuk carbonoi. We have the Sarvona base. It says carbonoi. The data stresses that has to be your carbon. Then you even though you stole it and there was yehush and halacha, technically it's yours, but not as far as the carbon is concerned. It's not yours. So says about it. Amarula Ula says dvar toida minat toida bein noida bein loy noida ein mechaperes. It doesn't work even if you were not aware. It doesn't work. My time. Yehush kadi like kind of yehush not kind of machlekes are showing what the Ula holds. The Ula holds yehush not kind at all, or not by carbon. And if you look at Rashi clearly says that yehush is not kind of. He says like kind of inyan hakrava, as far as the carbon is concerned. But afilu shamina says yashabai lekari make carbon. No, it's not called your carbon. So it seems and sometimes Rashi that's what Rashi holds. Rashi holds that even Ula holds yehush is kind of, but now when it comes to carbon, the Torah wants it to be yours. So why do we say that if you weren't aware that this is a stolen animal, it's a good carbon? What means a good carbon? We don't want koinim to be depressed, and the chacham have a right to say don't bring another carbon. So the way again, the chachamim have a right to tell you don't bring another carbon. So we don't want koinim to be depressed. They bring carbon chatas and they cannot eat from the meat, and so on and so forth. And not only that, they feel like they ate chulin ba'azara. Here, they did all the right things, and they did an aveda because it was a stolen animal. They weren't aware of it, and that if it's not a carbon, it's chulin ba'azara. Yeah. Saying more further, and the Rabban say to Ula, but it says clearly tikkun hamizbeach. The Mishnah says it fixes the mizbeach, and you tell me it's fixing up the mood of the kohen. Amalan, very simple. If the kohenim are not happy, they're not going to perform. The mizbeach will be empty. Even the kohenim are saying, if the kohenim are depressed, no, they're not going to do the work in the mizbeach. Okay, so Ula holds that the takana of Chachami was that it should be that at least if it's a shaygig, the carbon should be effective. Now, whether the carbon is effective or whether you don't have to bring another carbon is because the way Rashi learns that you don't have to bring another carbon because Shavat Taisa. But will you mischaper with this carbon? Lavdafka, because Chacham can't in a proactive way. Tater said it's not a carbon. Chacham said it is a carbon. So it sounds like in this case here that it's you want you ate carbon chatas, but the Chacham can tell you don't bring another carbon. And even though you weren't carbon chatas, it's not chulin bazaros, so the kohenim are all right. However, Buddha says even b'mezid. Then the mechaper is mechaper. My time by yish, got declared yish on its own is kohenim. Matam Amru, so why did the Chachamim come along and penalize you? That Noida Eina Mechaperes, Shalom Yomru. We don't want people going around and slandering the Mizbeach Oichel Nevelas. And the Mizbeach can eat this Mizbeach that eats stolen goods. So therefore, not to bring shame to the Mizbeach, they said, if you know it's stolen, you're not Yates. Says the Gemara. According to Ula Heinrich Chatas, that's why it says Chatas, because we're talking about the Koine will be depressed and an oil can get nothing from anywhere, which is the mile made. When it comes to Chatas, where they get to eat the bulk of the meat, they're going to be upset now. And they ate Chulin Bazar, fine. That's why he talks about the Karb Chatas. El Rav Yehuda, who said the problem is the Mizbeach, people going around saying Mizbeach ate stolen goods. On the contrary, the oil is completely Mizbeach. It looks even worse. He's my idiot Chatas. You don't have to say surely it looks worse. Of course, people are going to slander him as beach. Even when nami, you can say, look, what goes on the beach already? The you sprinkle the blood and the fats, and that's it. They murin. The balance of the animal, meat. Maybe people won't slander him as beach. Even so, I'm penalized. Stolen goods, you cannot bring him as beach because a little bit that goes on his beach, people already are going to mock them as beich. It says in Moratran, it says in our Mishnah, Al Chatas Agzula, Stolen Chatas, Shaloi Noidel Rabbi was B'Shoige, you weren't aware, Shahim Yachat Peres, it forgives, B'Pnei Tikkun HaMizbech. It forgives because of forgiving the seems in the Mishnah that the Mishnah is giving a reason why it's effective when you didn't know about it. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's effective when you didn't know about it because that's the halacha. Because Yehush is koine. In fact, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the reason the Mishnah is explained to you why we penalized that if you did know it's stolen good, it's not effective. But that's how the Mishnah seems to be saying. It makes sense. Rabbi Yehuda, all the way around. Exactly what he's saying here. It's the inference. This is how you read the Mishnah of Rabbi Yehuda. You didn't know it's mechaper. So we can infer, but noida, if you did know if it was stolen goods, ain't a mechaperes. And why not? So the why is on the ain't a mechaperes. They take them as mostly Rabbi asked the question. It says, Gonav, if somebody stole an animal, the higdish, and he made it kedish. And afterwards, Tavach, he shechted it. Now, if you steal an animal, you pay back double. If you then go ahead and shecht or sell it, depends if it's a sheep or a cow, you pay 4 or 5 times. So what happened? He stole an animal and he made it hegdish. And then afterwards, he shechted it and he sold it. Mishalim tashlumi kev. You pay the double, but you don't pay the 4 or 5 times. The eina mishalim tashlumi abba v'chamishi. You don't pay the 4 or 5 times. Why? Because when you shechted it, it's no longer your animal. It's going to hegdish. And by hegdish, you don't pay for a penalty of 4 or 5 times.
We
just had this machlekes. If Yehush is trying to do Yehush here, and we had machlekes. See in a minute. The Tony Allah. Then we learned in the Braisa a comment. Bachutz, if you would have taken this animal that you made hegdish, and then you decided to shecht it, if you shechted Pesach and Moed outside Beis Hamikdash, you're chayiv kares shchuter chutz. If you decide to shecht out Beis Hamikdash, ki hay gavna. In such a case, onush kares, you will get kares. You will get kares if it's your animal. The Yamid Yehush Kadil Kone. If you can tell me that Yehush is not koine, then kares my ability. Then what kares do you have him? Now, the obvious question is, why are we asking for shchuter chutz? Ask from Arba Behei. Ask why does, if Ula holds that Yehush is not koine and you makdish the animal, why don't you pay 4 or 5 times? It's not hegdish the animal. Why are we asking for the part of the price of kares? Why aren't we asking from the mission itself, where it says that you pay dalad behei? And the sorry, you don't pay dalad behei because it belongs to hegdish. But if Yehush not koine, then does not belong to hegdish. So Rashi makes a distinction here between hegdish and carbon. Rashi says that that hegdish it did become, but carbon you cannot use it. So it's clear from Rashi here that Ula holds that Yehush is koine, but not for a carbon. But it says the pasuk carbon noy has to be your carbon. So, but hegdish you can make. So Rashi holds in Ula. I'll just quote you Rashi. Kodesh my vidite. It's a big Rashi. It doesn't bother us. There's no Rashi, 10 lines in Rashi. It doesn't bother us if 4 or 5 times the equal member can say the chi oma when we say yesh kati lekonyo yesh nakonyo linyan akrova kamar only regarding the carbon. The loyal inyan hegdish kamar, but not regarding hegdish. So Rashi holds in Ula the third way I told you that yesh is kaina but not as far as a carbon is concerned. So how did it become hegdish? So others want to say that Yesh is not kind. Those who hold Yesh is not kind. How did them something money here? Then why aren't we asking about the hay? Because here there is Yehush and Shini Hashem, the Rashba learns. There's Yehush and Shini Hashem. And I told you before that one of the ways of Yehush, if there's a Shini Hashem, because you called it before, it was called Chulin, now it's called Hegdish. So it's a Shini Hashem together with a Yehush. That's why it's effective.
If you go to building a base with that,
yes, and we're in trouble with it. But so that's why carbon is different. Not like Rashi learned that Yehush should be effective except by carbon. Anyway, now how does carbon? If you told me that it never became a carbon, when you have a carbon on this road to be a carbon, you brought it outside base of English, but this was never road to be a carbon because of stolen goods. And what's going on here? I'm going to be Kaddish Medivrei. To Kaddish Midrabon. Achiko little smile. Kaddish Medivrei Mika. What kind of Kaddish Rabban? Amlurava says Rabba to them. Gavra Rabba Ama Milsa. If a great man says something like Tachikole, don't you dare smile, laugh, or mock him. No, the take it's only with the Rabbanan, but the Rabbanan made it in such a way that now he'll get Kaddish Mahatayda. How? Ukme Rabbanan B'Shusei. The Rabbanan said, you know what? Hefke Bezin Hefke, we're going to say that to take away the item from the original owner, we're going to give it to the Ganis, and that's completely the Ganis. Therefore, it's shaykh to be a carbon, but who gave it to him? Only the Rabbanan. You're shaykh to be a carbon, and now we'll get Kaddish Mahatayda for shechting it outside of the Beis Hamikdash. So here we see, and this is a whole discussion whether Kinyan the Rabbanon is effective for Inyanim the Raisa. Here we see Hefke Bezin is the Rabbanon, and not only the Hefke Bezin, but they're giving it to the Ganef. So they're giving them a Kinyan, and you're going to get Kaddish Ma'atayda. So they want to bring an eye from here to those opinions that say that Kinyan the Rabbanon is Mahani for Inyanim of the Torah. They talk about Kedushin, if you something you only Kaddish Rabbanon and you give it to her, she be Kaddish to Ma'atayda just with Rabbanon. I do have a question. You tell me right now that we give it over to the Ganef so that he should be chayiv. When did we give it over to the Ganef? From the moment he stole it, or from the moment he made it hektish? From the moment he stole it, from made it hektish. The mind of the difference. The interim period, the shearings and the any vlodas that came out, any babies, calves or whatever, although Rabbi Mustafa makes sense, this is what you said to him before. Why should he gain the sharings and everything else? He's sitting and he's shechting outside the base of Migdash, so we're going to make it his. So what, you make it retrospective, so therefore he should gain all the sharings. Why should he gain from doing it? Okay, we have a concept called Sikrikin. Sikrikin is Goyim who would threaten Yidden their lives, and in order to save their lives, to spare themselves, they would give them a field. And we have a concept called Pliya Zovin Zovin, that if you're forced to do something and we feel that you actually meant it, because you wanted to save your life. That's called Sikrikins. Rashi says Sikrikin is the word Sarkarka. Here, take my karka instead of my life. So then afterwards, what are these going to do with these properties? They would sell it to Yidden. And the question is that a real sale, or can the original owner go back to this either body? You bought stolen goods, give it back to me. Yeah, but this is fencing because he's dealing in stolen goods, even though it's not portable, it's property. Let me just follow. That there was no sikrikin in Yehuda during the time of Haruga Muhammad, the time of Titus. We'll see more explaining what that means. And in Yehuda, and Maharuga Milchama, and Tesis says very interesting thing. The Yerushalmi says why Dafka Yehuda was this whole thing of Sikrikim, because the Esav had a tradition that it was Yehuda who killed their grandfather Esav. The Gemara says that Chushim ben Don, he couldn't hear what was going on when Esav was arguing and he wants to think, so he took a stick and he banged in the head, and the eyes fell out and landed on the lap of the Yaakov. So Tesis, true, that's what happened, but Esav didn't die yet. It was Yehuda that came over and killed him. That's a tradition that the Bnei Esav had. True or not true, we don't know. And therefore, they had a special case against Yehuda, Yerushalayim. That's why they're always against Yerushalayim. Because Yerushalayim is in Yehuda's share, Yehuda's portion. Interesting. Maybe explains what's going on in the world today as well.
Yeah.
So, even though they consider as Ishmaelim, we know that nobody knows who Ishmaelim are today. Maharuge Melchama ve'elech. But from the Harugim Milchaman onwards, yesh bo sikrikum. From the Harugim Milchaman onwards, there is sikrikum. After that war, there was sikrikum. Things go way around. During the war, be sikrik, and after war, be a bit more rule and order. We'll see. Ketzad lokach mesikrik, and if somebody purchased from a sikrik and v'chazal look balabayis, and then now it used to be in the time of sikrik, and if the owner could come and cancel the whole purchase and take it back. But afterwards, if somebody bought it from sikrik and then he went and bought it from the balabas as well, mekhe bottle. The mekach is bottled because the only reason why the Yid agreed to it, he had no choice because the Sikrikim sold it. Well, the bottom, but he went first to the Balabais, and then he went to the Mexican, then the Mexican. He didn't have to agree. He didn't even go to the guy yet. Same principle as a man and a woman. Lokach manisha, a woman's property, nichsim beloig, that the husband has a right to dividends, and the guy went and bought it from the man, and then he went to the woman. Mekhe bottle. She can afterwards protest and cancel the why because she said I did it to favor my husband. Of manisha, if he first went to the wife to buy her property. That's how it was originally. The later business said, if somebody buys from a Sikrikan, you give to the original owner a quarter. Because what happened was the Sikrikan didn't really care to get the full value. They wanted a quick fire sale. So they would drop it by 25%. Why should you, the person who bought the land, benefit from the fact that the guys took advantage? Yeah, so the quarter that you save, give that to the original owner, and we still wanted the sale to go through because we want to get. If we don't let the sale go through, then the government will keep the land. We want Eretz Yisrael to belong to Jews only. We had. Sorry?
We had that earlier.
Yeah, exactly. You have Testament base, and you're allowed to on Shabbos. You got to go to write a contract. So therefore, we encourage the sales. We want to make it work. We also want to make sure we remedy somehow or another the negative. They can afford to buy themselves, and they come first. Rebbe said with Bezin, and they made a rule as follows. And that means in Rebbe's time, the store existed. This is many years after Churban Bayis. It was there 12 months, and the original owner didn't purchase it back. Anybody who buys it, but the other part of it, giving a quarter, yeah, you still have to do that. Says the Gemara. Right now, Haruge Malchus, it doesn't make sense. You tell me during the war when lives were cheap, life is cheap, you tell me there was no Sikrikin. And you tell me that what? If somebody bought from a guy, the purchase is a valid purchase. But then you tell me, but from the Haruge Muhammad onwards, has the laws of Sikrikin. Does it make sense? The time of peace. And then should be laws of Sikrikin. It means that they did not, after the war, they did not follow the laws of Sikrikin. What do you mean? There were 3 stages of Gzeres. Gzer to the time of Titus. Gzer to Kamaisa, the first Gzer was awful. Cold Deloy Kotel, any person who sees a Yid and doesn't kill the Yid, Lik Toluhu, that guy will be killed. Mitziyasa, the next stage was a bit less. Call the reduced a little bit. Call the kotel. If you kill the Yid, we'll do like these average, we're doing it there that you any terrorist they give $25,000 to. Is like the Abazuza. We'll reward that family. No, but we're not going to penalize if you don't, but if you do, we'll reward you. Basraisa, and the third stage was called the kotel liku. If a guy kills the Yid, the guy will be killed. Kamaisa Mitziyasa, the first 2 when Yid's lives were cheap. Even the Kotli, then the Yid was, when he gave the property to the guy to try to appease him, then he meant it to save his life. But during the third stage, when lives are no longer cheap and going will be killed for killing a Yid, then I'm happy to give him my property now, and tomorrow I'll collect it. In other words, there's no dinner Sikrikum because I never gave it wholeheartedly at all. Because I just did it right now just to get him out of my life, but I know that I can go to court and eventually take it back.
It measures that time period. It calls it Haruge Milchama, not just Shas HaMilchama.
Because you see right here, these are laws. They're not fighting at the front. This is laws. You walk around in the middle of the streets. You go to Vienna. I saw in Vienna one of the apartment buildings there. There was a plaque on the building that 3 months after the war was over, there was like 35 or 36 Yidden taking out of the building. People went back home. Taken out of the building and killed in the middle of the street. It wasn't a Shas Mulchama, this was murder. I'm going to be said, my receiver, it says the pasuk, Adam mefached tamid. Praiseworthy is that person that always has fear. U'makshaliba yipol berah. Somebody who's stiff-necked, he falls into bad. What does that mean? In other words, mefached means he's always concerned about the future. He's always careful that he doesn't want to make sure that there are no repercussions or consequences, bad consequences from his actions. What happened? Akamtza uba kamtza chavishalayim, because the kamtza by kamtza Yerushalayim was destroyed. Atanagoyla v'tanagolta chodav tur malka, because of a tanagol and a tanagolta, hen and a rooster, tur malka was destroyed. And Ashkar did this big because of the wheel of the chariot, a women's chariot. Well, the Gemara will explain what these two stories are. All these stories are. Is chodav beita. Beita was destroyed. What's going on? First, akamta b'kamta chorishlaim, because the kamta b'kamta Yerushalayim was destroyed. Well, Gabriel, there's a person, the rachame kamta, he loved kamta, ubal, the bobe, and his arch enemy was bar kamta. Very similar names. He loved kamta and he hated bar kamta. Ovatudosa, this person made a meal. Amal Lishma, he said to his gabbai zil, aisili kamta, please invite kamta, my good friend. Also, he went, isolate bar kamta. Instead, he invited bar kamta. Also, he went. Actually, found that Yosef. He found the host saying, "So Bakam to sing at his party." Only Merdi, who Gabra about the Bobbin or Gabra have it. Comes to third person that you are the enemy of this person. My boy, why in the world are you here? Kumpuk, pick yourself up and leave. Amalei, he said to him, "Look, I'm here already. Shavki, let me stay. I'll pay for my meal." She said, "Everything I ate and everything I drank." Amalei, no. Amalei, you even love to make palga. I'll pay half of this party. Amalei, no. Amalei, you even love to make coolers. I'll pay for the entire party. Don't embarrass me, humiliate me in public. Amalei, nokte biyode. He physically picked him up. And he made him stand up. Afghan chased him out. This man was humiliated and ashamed, as you can understand. He said, all these rabbis were sitting there, not one person stood up and protest. Is that that what? It's as if they agree with this host. I am going to go and massa inform to the government about the Yidden, and I'll make up a story. Ozil, he went, he said to the case, the Jews rebelled. Who said, send them a carbon. Let us see. Let's see if they'll bring up your carbon. And you'll see they won't bring up your carbon because they hate you. Now we know we already learned that you could bring up a goy's carbon, but the laws of mum by a goy are different than the laws by yid. We're very particular, even cuts anything else. By a goy, it's only if they miss the entire limb. Ozili went Yade Igla till he built either a third-born calf or a calf that's already a third mature. But how did the and while they were traveling, he made a moon benisra sign on his lip. On the eye, which for a goyim is not considered a limb, it's not missing a neighbor, but not missing a limb, but by us, it's considered a mum. In a place, they have a mum, they don't have a mum. For them, it's a mum. For us, not a mum. Who saw about mum? Saw about the kruvit. About want to be makrivet. Mishum shalom malchus. So we see here that because of shalom malchus, they want to bring it out. You're allowed to do yisudim in the Torah because it's about mum, and they were going to bring it up because shalom malchus. That's how far we go. When we say but we allowed to do certain things, we see from there's machlek you can do yisudim deraisa as well. And here we see clearly you can do yisudim deraisa to put an animal bal mum on the mizbech. Amr was Chayyim and Akulis. So Chayyim said, Yom will say, people will start saying, hey, you can bring a mum to his bech. So the Mikla, they wanted to kill him, he shouldn't go back, he's a Moser. People say, Matu mum kachim yaharig, you bring a mum kachim and get killed. Amr Rabbi Yechon, Adnif Snusa, Sharab Chayyim and Akulis, his humility. Hechribas Beisanu, Sarfes Echelonu, he destroyed the base of Mikdash, burned Hechel, Iglisanu Matzenu. It's hard to see whether he was upset with his behavior or he was just lamenting the fact.